Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody tuning in. Today, I just thought I'd start a beginners series on the foreign exchange market. So today we'll be talking about, Forex and what exactly it is, right? So I really like examples. They help me understand things a lot better. So I'll be giving you guys an example of the foreign exchange market and how exactly people are able to make revenue off of this market, right? So with this example, you guys will start to see how you've potentially already traded, and it'll also give you a good understanding of the foreign exchange market. And so we'll be covering a couple of questions, right? So, usually when one question is presented to you about Forex, it creates a chain of questions, right? So you might think about, if I trade, who else trades? Well, I got you. We're going to cover that as well. You might think, how big is this? What does the opportunity look like? I got you. We'll cover that as well. How do I even start trading? Who is the middleman in all of this to make my transaction complete? I got you. We'll cover that as well. And the big question everybody always asks is, will I get rich trading? I got you. We'll cover all of these questions, and I feel like it will make for a pretty good lesson on the foreign exchange market. All right, so let's get right into this example. Okay, so let's say that you are from the US and you want to take a trip to France, right? So the very first thing you got to do is exchange your dollars for euros, right? Because they use euros in France, and that's how you make transactions. That's how you spend your money, right? You can't be up in France trying to use dollars. It'll probably just make a whole lot of people mad, and at the end of the day, you won't be able to make any transactions, right? So let's say you're at the airport and you visit one of these currency exchange booths to exchange $200 for 200 euros, right? This is going to be your spending money. And in this example, we are assuming that the ratio between dollars to euros is 1-to-1. So, if I give somebody $1, that's equivalent to €1. So I would expect €1 back. Right? So let's just say we exchange $200 for 200 euros, right? This is our spending money. But then we realize this trip has already been paid for, right? Our parents basically covered us, thankfully. So, we're chilling and we're able to keep that 200 euros in our pocket until we come back to the US, right? So we're in France, we're having a good time. We're seeing a lot of those different tourist attractions. We're eating a lot of bread or baguettes as they call it. And we're just having a good time and soaking in the experience, right? So after about 2 weeks, it's time to come back to the US, right? And so when we come back to the US, we give that 200 euros that we were keeping in our pocket, right? Because our trip was already been paid for. We go back to the currency exchange booth and we give them back the 200 euros for what we think will be, the $200, right? Because, the price was equivalent. We're assuming that $1 equaled €1. But instead of getting $200 back, we get $400 back, right? So we just made money by doing nothing. And you might start to think, how did this happen? Right? Well, what just happened is that the value of the US dollar with respect to the euro increased when we were abroad, right? So the value increased with respect to the euro. And this may have been due to, some news event or, political event happening in the US that increased the value of the currency. And we basically, just made money. We just 2x'd our investment, if you will, right? We invested $200 and we got $400 back. So instead of that 1-to-1 ratio between the US dollar and the euro, it's now 2-to-1. The dollar is 2 times greater than the euro, right? And this is what Forex is. The value between different currencies is constantly fluctuating, and as a trader or investor, you could play off of those fluctuations to make profit. Right? Now you need to understand what you're doing. You have to have the right education, but that in a nutshell is how people trade within the foreign exchange market. They make speculations on where the value of different currencies might go with respect to another currency. And, if you're on the right end of that, you can make profit, right? And there's a whole educational aspect to understanding how to trade, mainly through technical analysis and fundamental analysis, something that we'll cover in future lessons. All right, so now that you understand the fact that you could potentially be a player in this market, one of the participants, you might wonder who else is in this market. Who else am I up against? Who else is, has some skin in the game, right? So we talked about us being some players. We're, as independent traders, we're referred to as retail traders. You'll hear that term tossed around a lot, but you also have banks, right? So whenever you make a deposit in your savings or checking account, that money doesn't necessarily sit there, right? The bank might actually use their cash reserves to invest within different markets. One of them being the Forex market, so that they can generate revenue, profit, right? Because they are a business as well, and they're looking to, invest in different things to generate more income for themselves, right? So you also have banks in this market, and you also have big corporations, right? So maybe, for example, Coca-Cola has a purchase order in France. Let's stick with France for this example, right? We're trying to make some transaction from Atlanta, Georgia to France. Well, in order to make that transaction possible, we might need to be exchanging the form of currency that we're doing business with, right? So you have big corporations, banks, and us, right, to name a couple of the participants in this market. All right, so how big is Forex, right? So we talked about a couple of the different key players in the market, but how big is it? How many people are in this game playing and trading to make some sort of profit? Well, let me just say that Forex is big. It's like big. It's very big, right? If we want to, start talking about numbers, more than $6 trillion is traded in this market per day. It is the largest financial market in the world. All right. And just to give you guys a little bit of a perspective, the New York Stock Exchange has more than $22 billion that is traded per day in that market. So you can start to see, how big Forex is, and you can start to see how the appeal is, right? There's a lot of opportunity in this market, but with a lot of opportunity comes a lot of competition. So you have to understand, who you're up against, who else is in this market, like we talked about, right? So there's a lot of opportunity. You'll hear a lot of people say, that this market is huge. You can get a huge piece of that, but you also have to understand who you're up against, right? So I just want to make that point very clear for anybody that's looking to start trading. Now you might start to wonder, okay, so this market is big. I'm looking to start participating, but how do I even get started? How do I even, place a trade, right? Well, you have to pick a broker, and this broker, you can think of a broker as a middleman, right? They make your transaction complete. So previously we talked about how if you've, studied abroad or traveled to a new country, that's how you may have participated, by visiting that currency exchange booth, going to another country, coming back, and then getting some, money back, depending on how prices fluctuated between different currencies. Well, as technology has developed, it's allowed for people to, literally trade off of their phones, their computers, and to make these transactions possible, like I was saying, you have to have a broker come into play. They are the middleman between you and the markets. They allow your transactions to be made, right? So you might also start to wonder, okay, well, they're doing this great service for me that could potentially allow me to generate some revenue. How are they benefiting off of this? Well, this is through spreads and commissions, right? So you can think of spreads as, whenever you enter the market, it's an offset, right? You may hear people say, oh, this broker has a 2 pip spread on, Euro USD. Well, instead of starting at, let's say you're running a race, instead of starting at 0, maybe you're pushed back, 2 feet. Well, let's say in the market, you're pushed back with a 2 pip spread, right? That you have to overcome before you actually get to the finish line. You go a greater distance. So the spread is just something that the brokers attach to a transaction to generate revenue for themselves. And now they also may have commissions that come into play in terms of how they make profit, right? You can think of commissions as just as the cost to enter the trade or place the trade. Now, the great thing with Forex is that, the commissions are pretty low compared to other markets like the stock market. You'll see commissions being very, very low. So that's not too much of an issue that I've seen across very many brokers with Forex, but you'll see spreads come into play more. And you'll see that spreads, they may vary based on, the currency pair that you're trading, as well as the time of day. That's something that I will, dive a little bit deeper into in future lessons. But that's just the overview of how, they make their money as a broker. Now, another key point that I want to mention is that the fact that you'll have regulated brokers and unregulated brokers. And basically the difference between the two is that regulated brokers, they are registered with some financial regulatory body within your country. So there's rules that they have to follow in terms of doing business with different traders. And now that makes them a little bit safer, but that doesn't necessarily mean that unregulated brokers are bad, not being, registered with any not necessarily being registered with any financial body within your country. It just means that you have to do your own research about the broker to know what they're about, and some of the fine print that might come with registering with this broker. So not to say that they're necessarily bad. I actually I trade with a regulated broker and unregulated broker for reasons that I'll cover in a future lesson. But I just wanted to make that quick distinction because it's pretty important to know. All right, so the big question a lot of people want to know is if I can get rich trading, right? You might see, in the media a lot of the times, people posting Lamborghinis or talking about how they 2x'd, or quadrupled their account within a matter of days. Well, I'm here to basically say that most of that stuff on social media is not necessarily true. Trading is very difficult, and it is possible to get rich trading, but it is hard work, right? Just the same way that you have to, go to college for maybe 4 years to get a degree, you have to treat trading as that type of investment of your time. I'm not saying that it will take 4 years to get good at this or become consistently profitable, but you have to treat it as a serious skill that will take some time to develop and understand, and may take some time to see some considerable returns. But I am here to say that it is possible to get rich trading, to become wealthy, but just like anything worthwhile in life, it will take time. And this is not something that you should look to make a quick buck, but rather if you have that long-term outlook with trading, it's something that can lead towards some great financial freedom. All right, you guys, but that is my quick overview of the Forex market. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And if you appreciate this type of content, please leave a like down below, as well as comment what you want to see next from me. Maybe as I continue to make these beginner series, you want to see a specific topic covered. Definitely let me know in the comments down below. And don't forget to subscribe for future content. All right, so with that, thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll check back with you guys very soon. Peace.